Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're here with our first NFL Week 15 recap as we have the Detroit Lions picking up a 42-17 win versus the Denver Broncos. Now, this was a very interesting game, and I think more importantly than actually winning the game for the Detroit Lions, what I'm focused on is the manner in which they won this game. This was a complete team win, a complete team effort. Now, as we get closer to playoff football, when we talk about weeks 1 through 8, do you have a win or a loss in the win record column? But now it's not so much about that, because as we get closer to the playoffs, you're playing the San Franciscos, you're playing the Dallases, the teams that we will see in the playoffs. And I think the biggest thing about that is you want to be hitting your stride. We're getting into late December, early January. I want to be playing my best football. And I think what we've seen from the Detroit Lions, why it's so important and why it's amplified to play a game like this, they haven't been playing their best football at all in these past few weeks. I dropped a video entailing a lot of different things and a lot of different issues with this team. But to come out here and do what you did today, albeit I think for the Denver Broncos, we're not seeing the same football team that we saw in the 5-game win streak. And I think it started back with the Houston, Texas loss when the win streak got snapped. Now, my biggest question, and I said it at the time for Denver and Sean Payton, when you have the absence of taking away the football. Now, when we talk about the Lions offense, had 3 turnovers last week, 0 turnovers versus the Denver Broncos. The Detroit Lions put up 448 yards of offense after putting up 267 total yards and 13 points versus Chicago. When the Denver Broncos have the absence of taking away the football, can Russell Wilson do more? We've been talking about it and we've been saying it. They haven't been letting Russ cook to the extent that we've seen him cook in the past for the Seattle Seahawks with a Pete Carroll, with a DK Metcalf, a Tyler Lockett, some of those guys. We're seeing what we're seeing now, and it was predicated on the run game. It was predicated on a defense that could take away the football. Now we're going to control the clock. Now we're going to win time of possession. The Detroit Lions didn't allow that today. So I think when we look at this, the Detroit Lions also got back to their brand of football, 185 yards rushing, 6 of 6 in the red zone. That's just not realistic. 6 of 6 in the red zone. If you told me yesterday the Detroit Lions, I don't care who they were playing, they could play the 32 ranked defense in the NFL. And if you told me they would go 6 for 6 in the red zone, I wouldn't believe it. But to be that efficient, after what you've been doing lately, Ben Johnson stepping up to the table, Jared Goff stepping up to the table, 24 of 34, 278 yards, 5 touchdowns. Now, I'm going to keep it real when it's bad, and I'm going to keep it real when it's good. I couldn't spot a flaw in this team, and I think when we talk about offensive line, trench play, they won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And Frank Ragnow, do we give him an MVP ball? Being inserted back into the lineup. He did not play last game. Graham Glasgow, he was the center. You had Coyote Owasaka at the right guard position. Now you got Graham Glasgow. He slides back to the right guard. Frank Ragnow playing the center position. That's your starting 5. That's your lineup right there. And I think we saw it for the Detroit Lions. No pressure at all from the Denver Broncos for the most part of the game. And you say, okay, now we can run the football. Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 carries, 100 yards, touchdown. David Montgomery adding in 85 yards additionally. So we can run the football. We can now get those linebackers. Now they're attacking the line of scrimmage. Now this opens up the middle of the field. This is where the Sam Laporta's room. This is where the Amon-Ra St. Brown's room. 7 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown for Amon-Ra St. Brown. The collective unit, something we've been talking about. We've had this discussion in my comments. We said, okay, if they can run the football, control the clock, now we get into the play action. Now we let those guys go get it. Josh Reynolds had a big-time catch on the day. Jamison Williams, let's talk about that one catch. We say, J-Mo, how are his hands? How effectively can he be a hands catcher of the football? And we saw one catch, I believe it was on Fabian Monroe, but it was a pure hands catch. He went up and he went and got it. Went out in the football game because I believe he came down in the corner, came down on his leg, but then he got back into the football game. Wasn't nothing to worry about. But offensively, just talking about the collective unit, everybody shined today. Sam Laporta, 3 touchdowns on the day. And I said it. I posted it on the community post. The film breakdown is coming, but I think the biggest thing, when we can talk about the offense and how they played, you got to talk about the defense. Now, when I said the offense was struggling, I didn't think it was actually a Ben Johnson problem strictly. I thought it was a problem that they're having to press. They're trying to make up for some of the deficiencies of this defense. But I think what we saw today was a defense. Now I'm gonna give my game ball to Ife Melifonwu. That's a guy that plays in the secondary for the Detroit Lions, and what he was able to do, they put pressure on Russell Wilson all game. And this is a team, we talk about pressure. Now, you had 2 sacks on the day. That's what we've been seeing. A team that has an extremely high pressure rate, got to get more sacks. But I think overall, just getting Russell Wilson off of his spot, we never saw this offense comfortable. Russell Wilson, 18 of 32, 223 yards and a touchdown. Javonte Williams, their primetime back, 12 carries, 27 yards. Stymie in the run game. What do we just talk about in my last video when I talked about this team? I said they were not stopping the run like we saw earlier. First half of the season, Detroit Lions stopping the run. Now we even talk about a secondary that may lack some talent, a pass rush that may lack some talent, but you can now focus in on that because when you don't stop the run and you don't stop the pass, now you're really pressing. Now you're struggling. Aaron Glenn, what type of position does that put him in? But when he understands, okay, Alex Anzalone is going to fly around. Isaiah Budd's going to get after it. John Kaminsky, Aiden Hudson. Now I can focus on the pass. I can really think about, okay, I know I'm probably going to get him in 3rd and long, passing obvious. Now I can focus on my blitz packages. I can bring out some of those dime nickel packages because it's a situation like that when we can stop the run. So I think for Russell Wilson, even with that, we saw an offensive line that struggled. And when they were winning these football games, this was an offensive line that was protecting Russell Wilson. They didn't have to protect him to this manner because they could have ran the football. And I think that does help when you get into the play action with a Sean Payton. But talking about defensively for Detroit, this is something that we haven't been seeing as well. And I think just a complete 180 offensively and defense. Now, Courtland Sutton, this was a guy who we also saw matched up with Cam Sutton. And this is something I've been talking about. Get Cam Sutton on the best receiver. That's what you have to do. That's the best corner in this secondary. And we saw that today, making big time plays against Courtland Sutton. It was just a good day. I mean, overall, it's not too many flaws to come out of this one. Now, I think the most important thing for Detroit, we're looking at the Detroit Lions. Now, next week, they play the Minnesota Vikings. And I think with the opportunity to clinch a division title, it's now setting you up for that Week 17 matchup. That matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, who are on fire. Now, we're probably going to talk about that team after the game tomorrow, but you're playing good football offensively and defensively. So we want to see when you go against Dallas, this is the best team left on your remaining schedule. How do you look? I don't know if it's going to be a win, a loss. Is it going to be an ugly win? Is it going to be a tough win? Is it going to be an ugly loss, a tough loss? So that's what you want to look for. I think that's the biggest thing that you have to be looking for the future. I think when you talk about the actual future, a couple of seasons down the road, what does this really mean today? Not the most important, but when we talk about the playoffs, this is a big time game. And I think just getting back to it, that was the theme of it. Now for the Denver Broncos, some things have to be cleaned up, and I think it starts with the offensive and defensive lines. A team that lost on a physicality battle, a team that lost at the line of scrimmage on both sides. I think we've been seeing those guys playing better. They've been the dominant factor, even from the guards to the tackles to the center. But today, it just wasn't that. And even defensively, getting after Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a guy who, if you flush him inside the pocket, if you bring pressure off of the edges, now he has to step into pressure from the interior. That's where you really get him. And I didn't see a team that could do that today. Now, of course, the play action adds to that when you can't stop the run, but they had their way. Ben Johnson, anything they wanted to do, they did it today. This was a good game. I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. That's going to do it for my recap. I think this really wraps up everything overall. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. And now, we out.